dollars cash for that $10 million value. Your heirs do not have $5 million. Your estate does not have $5 million in cash because it's only worth $10 million. So now they've got to go and sell off half of the assets that you worked so hard to get in order to pay this death tax. And the liberals, the Democrats, want to say that eliminating a portion of this tax is nothing more than a giveaway to the rich. How is that a giveaway? In other words, if you were able to live forever, you wouldn't have to pay an estate tax. So in other words, the liberals want to take advantage of your family's pain and suffering upon losing you and then extort them. Basically, that's what it is. It's extortion. I'm sorry, it is. I'm going to call a spade a spade. It's extortion. Simply because you died, the government wants half of what you earned legally and properly after taxes, and they're telling, well, no, we don't want the assets, we want the cash. Well, hey, Mr. Government official and the IRS, in order for us to give you the cash, we got to sell the assets. Now, don't you know that in some cases, if your heirs are not careful in how they sell those assets, they're going to owe taxes on what they sell, too. Oh, yeah, that is a fact. So not only are they going to have to pay the $5 million death tax, but selling $5 million in assets is going to trigger other taxes that they're going to have to pay on top of that. And you want to tell me that you're giving the rich a break? Hey, you weren't rich when you were working. Maybe you made, $50,000, $60,000 a year on average throughout your working career. You aren't rich, but yet and still, they get a $3 million, you get a $3 million, whatever it is, exemption. So what? The whole damn thing should be exempt. There should be no estate tax. There should be no death tax at any level. The government's already taxed that money. And they've probably taxed it, if you lived a long time, multiple times. It's already been taxed. And now you're telling the heirs who have to deal with this, your death, your passing, hey, here's, by the way, sorry that your matriarch or patriarch of the family died, but now here's your tax bill. And oh, by the way, if you sell the assets in order to pay this tax bill, you're going to have another tax bill. It's ludicrous. And I'm not talking the rapper either. I know some of you in Rush Limbaugh's Real Linda do not know what I just said. Ludacris is a name of a hip hop rap artist. I don't even know why they call them artists. I do not consider musicians, modern musicians. Well, I don't consider most musicians to be what we call an artist. I don't think music, as we know it today, is really art. But that's just my own opinion. But that's what everybody calls them. They're artists. Any more than an actor is an art. I don't believe an actor is an artist either. Hell, I don't even think a lot of artists are actually artists. You remember the picture of the crucifix in a jar of piss? Really, is that art? I know art is in the eye of the beholder. Well, this beholder says with his eye that's not art. But I digress. I know that's probably going to get me in trouble with some people, but too bad. I don't think that's art. So your heirs have got to come up with the cash to pay for what happens to everybody. You died. So let's put it in perspective. You work all your life. You didn't have a 6 or 7 figure income all your life, but you scrimped and you saved and you invested properly, and you ended up with a good size estate, large value. Maybe it's throwing off $1 million in cash every year. Maybe it's only throwing off $100,000 a year in cash for you. In any case, you're still paying dividends dividend taxes and other taxes on that income from those assets. So you're paying taxes. And so now you die. And now your heirs have to pay for your death. Not only do they got to pay for your funeral, but they have to pay the government for your death. And then the government says, well, you got to pay us in cash. And that cash is based on the entire value of the estate. Well, we don't care that the estate is only generating $100,000 in cash every year. No, it's worth 10 mil. So you got to give us half, at the various levels of government. Your total bill is going to be half. Well, okay, so now you have to sell some of those assets in order to pay that tax bill. And then they'll come back and tell you again, well, now that you sold some of those assets, well, that generated a certain amount of income or dividends for the estate. Well, now you got to pay taxes on that. But wait, we don't have a $10 million estate anymore. It's only $5 million. Well, just because you sold $5 million. So now you've got to pay taxes on that. So your heirs are hit with a triple whammy: your death and double taxes. Do you follow what I'm saying here? And I know that there are ways to limit that, but it's a shame that you have to go through so much trouble and so much cost in order to try to set up an estate that allows you to give your money to the people who you want to give it to without the government taking it first. I mean, that's sad. You've got to pay, hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars to set up all kinds of, accounts and to set up your will and your trust and all that kind of stuff in order to keep the government's hands off of what you've already paid taxes on from taking more. But yet a Democrat will tell you, oh, well, that's no big deal. But if you don't allow us to do that, if you don't allow us to rob you from the grave, because that's basically what the government is doing, robbing you from the grave. If you don't allow us to grave rob you, well, that's the same thing as giving a tax break to the rich. And that's how they frame their arguments all the time. It's based on class warfare. Because, the rest of us, we're supposed to be jealous and upset that you were fiscally responsible. And for those of you in Rush Limbaugh's Rio Linda, fiscal means financial. So you were financially responsible throughout your life. You made wise financial decisions. And now upon your death, you are going to be punished. And not only are you going to be punished, but so are your heirs. Now, of course, you're dead, so they can't throw you in jail. But they can seize the assets, your assets that you wanted your family to have, if they do not or cannot pay the tax bill. And look, this is what happens to a lot of family farmers. We were losing family farms left and right due to the death tax. Because, hey, all of a sudden the farmers' land, especially in the 80s and 90s when we had the roaring real estate markets and land values all over the place were shooting up, all of a sudden a farmer who, maybe his farmland at one point was worth $100,000, but all of a sudden with the real estate bubble, now that property is worth $1 million, and the farm family is finding, well, now that it's worth $1 million now, and they die, and the government comes in wringing their hands saying, you owe us. And the farmer's like, what are you talking? The farmer's surviving family is saying, what are you talking about? We don't have $500,000 to pay you. Well, it's not our fault. Well, the farmer's saying, well, it's not our fault either. We didn't say that our land was worth $1 million. You guys did. We've been paying taxes on it for all these years. And we've watched our tax bill go up and up and up and up and up and up. But we never said that the property was worth it. We weren't trying to ask for $1 million for this, but now you're saying it's worth $1 million, so now we got to give you $500,000. We don't have $500,000. Guess you're going to have to sell the land. And that's why farmers were losing land left and right. That's why farm families who farmed the land for generations were finding themselves on the outs because of the death tax. And the only, you know who saw it? Regular people like you and me at the time, we didn't see that coming. You know who saw it coming? Your legislatures on the state and federal level. Oh, yeah, they saw it coming. That's why they enacted certain laws that attached to that death. Because they saw a new source of income, a huge source of income. And now, you got Republicans who are rightfully so saying, let's get rid of this thing, this death tax. Let's stop punishing people for doing the right thing all their working life and being successful enough to end up with something that they can pass on to their posterity. Let's stop punishing them for that. And Democrats want to use class warfare instead of saying, well, let's find a common ground medium. All this, no, they're not interested in that. All they want to say is, well, this is just going to give the rich a tax break. But in reality is, the people that is going to hurt the most are the everyday middle class people who've worked all their lives so they have something to pass on to their children and their grandchildren. They're the ones being hurt by this, just like the family farmer. You know, they didn't make out like bandits when real estate property or real estate values went through the roof, because most of them, they kept farming the land. But then they end up having to sell it. And you would think, well, geez, they made a big penny off of selling it. But no, now they had to pay two tax bills. They had to pay the death tax bill for one. And then they had to pay all the income and dividend and all the other taxes that come along with selling the land. So by the time they paid all their tax bills, they pretty much had very little, if anything, left. They might have ended up with $200,000 to $250,000 out of that $1 million valuation. What are they supposed to do with that? Start over with that? How? Especially when the land around them and houses around them are costing more than $200,000 or $250,000. They're dead in the water. They're like a boat without a motor and a rudder. And who saw this coming? Well, obviously not the everyday folk like you and me. It was legislatures, and mostly it was liberal ones who saw it coming because they saw a huge payday for their government coffers so they could go out and spend like mad. And what you have to understand is the money that you earn does not belong to anybody but you. You earned it. You're trading your time, of which we all have a limited amount of. And I'm not talking about everybody's got 20. We hear the thing, everybody's got 24 hours in a day. Yeah. But that's, you know what? Right when it comes right down to it, that's BS, because it doesn't matter. But we all have a finite number of 24-hour days. I mean, some people have more than others, yes. But we've all got a finite number of days. So you are trading your time, something that you can never, ever get back. You cannot save it and tack it on to the end of your life. Okay, this year I saved a total of, out of 365 days this year, I saved a total of 24 hours. So that an extra day gets tacked on to the end of my life. No, that does not happen. You cannot save time. All you can do is every single second is spend it. And you have chosen to spend it wise enough so that you have something left over for you and for your family when you leave this planet. And the government wants to punish you and your family for that. No, that's all it is punishment. It's just an income grab. It's a money grab, because the government thinks that all the money that is ever created actually belongs to them and not you. You're the one that traded your time for dollars, because that's all it is. I don't care if it's $5 an hour, $15 an hour, $30 an hour, or $100 an hour. You're still trading your time that you cannot get back for money. So what the government is really saying is not all the money belongs to them, but you and your time belongs to them. Now, when you start thinking of it that way, because that's what taxes are, is you're trading your time to give your time to the government, because the government says, oh yeah, if you're in a 33% tax bracket, 33% of your time every day belongs to the government. Hey, folks, I'm telling you the truth. Don't doubt me on